Hi guys, my name's Jack Nagel and I've been in recovery for over 10 years now and completely transformed my life out of addictive patterns. And with Real Drug Talk and our treatment company called Connection-Based Living, I've helped hundreds of other people completely change their life as well. Like Haley, who's over 6 years in recovery. You can check her story out on our YouTube channel. And James, who's over 2 years in recovery now, you can also check his story out on our YouTube channel. Because of the mad times that we live in, we have put together a book. It's called The 11 Definitive Steps to Transform Your Life Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. You can find it by scrolling down in the description that I'm pointing at here. If you just scroll down and click that link, it'll take you to the special offer on the book. It's super cheap. And also you get some free bonuses along with it as well. So if you're looking to transform out of addictive patterns and get some change and, have things to be different and joyful and have some freedom in your life, I'd highly recommend taking a look at this book. It could be the most important thing you read in 2021 and 2022 moving forward. Into the video, guys. Peace. So, and this is like, just for everyone listening, like, I think this is why, not the whole thing, but like a really big part of why Gav's story is so interesting to me and to so many, and kind of in a few different aspects in terms of stigma, in terms of just like, impacting particularly, I reckon, like young men and providing hope and just people in general. Yeah, because like I really remember it. So I went to the same rehab, Malvern Private, as you. But yeah, as I said, I think it was 5 months after. So I didn't know, but yeah, met you in like 12-step fellowships. And yeah, it is amazing. There was quite a few people as well. Like even as someone that kind of used drugs, like you hear different stuff out in the community of different people that, have like some level of kind of fame or influence or whatever that use drugs or whatever. But you just like, unless you like encounter it when you're using drugs, you just don't think that it kind of happens, And it was like, in a way, it was a really like sobering thought to think like, oh, fuck. Like if this guy's like doing it, it must be a good thing. Like, have you found that your stories had that impact on a lot of people?
Yeah, look, and you're spot on, Jack. And I guess when I came in, my entire 28-year drug and alcohol career, the alcohol wasn't a secret, obviously, because it's a legal thing that we can do out in the public, obviously. But the drug use was that one thing I was really embarrassed and ashamed about. And, it was started with cannabis when I was a 16-year-old. And I had that through with me until the 5th of May, 2011. It escalated into amphetamines when I retired, although I dabbled with that during my playing career, but it was more just a bit of a social thing with that.
Yeah.
So when I went into treatment, once that secret was out, and first of all, it was obviously admitting all this stuff to my wife, who had no knowledge of it.
Wow.
The counsellors and the guys I was involved with at the residential rehab I was in basically said, you've got an opportunity here to be able to, spread the message and share what we, the lived experience. And it's not just a lived experience from a general person per se. And I say that without any ego whatsoever, but from a footy profile, there's 80,000 Collingwood supporters out there, and there's hundreds of thousands of footy supporters that would have seen me, and don't worry, I would have got judged initially by many, but there was certainly obviously a real compassionate feeling from it as well. And like when I went to 12-step meetings, especially when the ego was dropped and I was just a vulnerable 42-year-old male who was broken internally and was trying to get well and do things differently. I think that really resonated with many. And I remember, even still now it happens, but back in the first 3 or 4 years, if I went to an AA meeting, I had people that come up to me afterwards and say, Gav, I saw the show that you did with Eddie Maguire when I first came out. And mind you, I look back at that and think, oh my God, how bad I was. But the impact that has, and the ability to be able to just share, what happened for me. And it was like me when I first went to Malvern. Like I sat in a room, with the 30 people there, doing process groups. And every time someone spoke, I thought they were speaking about me. I thought, how do you know that? And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I thought. That's how I felt. And that's how I medicated. I basically medicated all that internal mess with what suited me. So that's really nice to hear. And like when people come up to you and say, it's awesome, that's great, I'm now doing 12-step meetings, or I went to rehab because I saw that, that's really impactful on me as well. So being able to utilise the profile I have to benefit others is a huge thing.
Just a quick interruption to let you guys know that we've created a complete new book called The 11 Definitive Steps to Get Recovery Without Going to Rehab. And for a short time only, we've got a super special deal on it where you can get the book for a heavily discounted price, plus some free bonuses, the book audio recorded, and a free self-care planner that I've used to help me start my day and finish my day in a really nice and freeing fashion. So if that's of interest to you and you're looking for some answers on how to get some transformation out of addiction without having to lock yourself away in rehab for ages, maybe you might want to check out the book. Search for it in the description below. Back to the video. Peace. Yeah, it's so interesting what you said there about, like the thoughts and feelings part of it, because that was my experience as well, is that and I think that's the thing that we got to talk a little bit more about just out there about like lived experience stuff, is that it's not this, like people always misunderstand it, professionals and stuff. It's not the fucking story really.
Yeah.
Like the people that I relate to, I don't really care what their story is, or I don't come from the same background, or I don't get it. It makes it more special if you do, or you look up to the person or whatever. But when someone actually is able to intimately describe to you how they're thinking and feeling, and it's the exact same as how you think and feel, and particularly in those early days when, you don't speak to anyone and you don't know, you think you're the only person in the world that thinks and feels like that. It's fucking mind-boggling, and it's so powerful, and that's what makes a lot of shifts. So yeah, it's interesting you say that. So just quickly, can you give us the 3-minute snapshot of your story then, like all tied up within that professional career, like drugs, how did you get into it? You mentioned a little bit how it played out. You kept it hidden from your wife. Like that's amazing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, I've only learned this over the last 10 years. I wholeheartedly believe in the genetic component of addiction where it can be handed down, because I relate to those people that talk about being restless, irritable and discontent. And that's before we pick up. And I felt like that as a kid.
Right.
I felt like a square peg in a round hole, just didn't feel like I fit in, was uncomfortable, anxious, I was a worrier, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And the only time I didn't feel that way was when I started playing footy, was the first one.
Right.
As a 7 or 8 year old. So I had a few hours a week where I actually felt comfortable with who I was.
Why do you think that was, like with footy? Like if you were to relate it to drugs, is it the taking yourself out of yourself kind of aspect and just concentrating on footy while you're there, or?
Look, I haven't looked that far into that, Jack, but I think it's also a part of that self-esteem and self-worth.
Yeah.
My dad was an alcoholic and was never in our family life, and I never had that male role model to look up to. And I look back now and I think of the way I played. I was a really desperate, aggressive, coachable player. Yeah. And I know for a fact now that I played that way because I was looking for the accolades and the feedback from the coaches, from that male role model.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was the first part of it. And then, as soon as I picked up cannabis or alcohol to start with, and cannabis a few months later, that was what medicated me basically. And I thought, this is awesome. From the first time I smoked dope, I smoked it daily. Until I came into treatment. So that was the beginning of it, and I used differently, I drank differently, all those things that we hear about. I wasn't, the normal drug user that would just have a go on the weekend. It was just the day after I experienced cannabis, I was straight on the phone to this bloke that I knew had it. I said, mate, can you get me more? And then it continued. And I was over that 28 years, I was never a real hard binger. I'm not sure. I can't remember your part of your story, Jack, but I was a grazer. Yeah. And it was partly because I knew I had to manage and had to function. So footy was really important, obviously. And then I knew, once the cannabis continued down here in Melbourne, when I moved from Queensland, I knew that I had to, keep track of it, so to speak, and manage what I was doing. And cannabis was probably the best one out of all of them, even, before alcohol, where I could have a few joints at night time and calm the nerves and go to sleep and wake up and be okay. Yeah. I wasn't smoking cones every day, all day. I certainly did that at period, during breaks and periods or days off. I certainly would write myself off and get myself wrecked. But it was a really interesting transformation, I guess, with my drug use, because it was, I went from being single and living Furniture Gully on my own to then having a partner that I then had to keep it secret from. And I guess one thing, I smoked cigarettes all through my footy career, so that was the mask. I could sneak out into my golf bag, and I could do what I need to do out there and keep it secretive. So then through my footy career, the cannabis was real. Alcohol over the weekends was pretty standard, like most guys, and then amphetamine snuck in. And the reasoning behind the amphetamine use was simply because I was drinking a lot, and again, that was keeping me sober. Yeah. So it was all about how I was perceived. Again, it was all about the ego and me being able to contain that, because if someone had seen me, if I'd have drank the way I normally drank, without some amphetamines in my system, I'd be on the ground, poleaxed. So that was a part of where that secret come from and why I needed to keep it so hidden. And then look, through once footy finished, it was just the shackles of the fitness and the boundaries of my football career were released. And amphetamine started straight away. It was the one drug I had experienced that gave me the self-esteem, gave me the confidence. I wasn't a huge communicator, so it allowed me the ability to be able to communicate to whoever. And it was just the drug that worked for me. Unfortunately, I was moving into professional AFL coaching, but that didn't matter. Again, it was functioning and doing what I needed to do daily just to get through the day, basically, with my internal discomfort. And I struggled there for 8 years with that, but I was on the downhill slide then. With the amphetamines, you can't use that daily without it becoming a mess for you at some stage. And and then I found myself in treatment a little bit later.
Interesting. So, and in that time, like even using amphetamines, because you said at the start, which I found really interesting, and I think this is a misconception, that people using amphetamines and pot and alcohol and this whole like cocktail can, like, as you said, you're on the downhill slope, but for a long time you're kind of somewhat functional with it. And then B, you kind of hid it from everyone, you said earlier. Like, so how did that all like come out, and how would you actually hide it? I imagine it would be hard and exhausting living like a double life like that the whole time. You bet. And I've just done an article with Hamish McLaughlin for the Herald Sun this week, actually, and spoke about it's almost like that cycle of getting the money, making sure your deal is available to get what you needed, working out how much you needed to get through the day and all that sort of stuff. And that cycle and that what we do as addicts to get what we need is a ritual, basically. And the keeping it hidden. Oh my God, I reckon there was a dozen times where I'd drop a bag of speed or I'd lose it, or you know what I mean? Like, and this is at home with Nicole and had kids, like that panic. It was while I was working full time and had a family full time, my main 100% of the time was actually getting, using, and then keeping it secret from everyone. And mate, it was the hardest. That's a mind fuck completely. Like I talk about being busy, but not having anything to do. So during the 28 years, I was completely busy, but it's only because my head was busy. I was busy doing nothing, basically. Except keeping it hidden. Interesting. It was a whole job in itself. Like, so, even to the extent, Jack, when I was travelling for interstate for footy games, like, because I couldn't. We used to go to Perth for like basically leave Thursday, come back on the red eye Saturday night. So I was a couple of days away without dope. And for me to even think about doing that was just anxiety provoking and a panic attack. So I would prepare. So I'd have my toilet bag, I'd roll the amount of joints that I needed to roll, I'd wrap them in plastic, I'd stick pepper in it or whatever I needed to do to get rid of the smell. I'd spray it with deodorant. So this whole huge cycle, just so I can get over there. I'd have a room on my own. I wouldn't leave the room the whole time we were there. And there were times when when you're at the airport and all the footy bags are lined up and all of a sudden the beagles appear. These little sniffer dogs.
Sniffer dogs rock up and they're going over your bags. And mate, I tell you what, the panic that I had several times seeing these dogs, and it wasn't until like it was a few years in my recovery that I was told that the beagles are actually fruit dogs. They're not the drug sniffers. So I used to have this panic around my footy bag, and could you imagine the embarrassment? Like Gavin, I'd played for 150 games, and these sniffer dogs sat beside my footy bag because I had 4 or 5 joints in them. Like it was just like I couldn't allow that to happen. But yeah, it was a real panic for me at certain stages. That's for sure.
Hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks for supporting the Real Drug Talk YouTube channel. Every video you watch, comment, subscribe to helps us to push through the YouTube algorithms and hopefully reach more people and help them out. Now listen, we're living in the most crazy times for the past 100 years, and because of that, as I mentioned throughout this video, we've created a brand new ebook that we have a special deal on called the 11 Definitive Steps to Transforming Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. So if that sounds of interest to you, check out the links below. You can click on it and claim the super special deal that we have on it at the moment. Again, hope you and your family are doing okay, and would love for you to check out the rest of the videos on our channels and share them with anyone else that you think it might help. See you in the next video. Peace.